point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 630th edition of Energy Week. This week with George Harvey. Nancy is not here. Last week, the BCTV staff was on some sort of conference, so I didn't record. The result of that is that this week I'm doing 2 weeks, and instead of doing 3 shows per day, I'm doing 2 some days, 1 others. So I'm getting in the same number of articles, but in the same amount of time, but it's covering 2 weeks. I'm starting on the 19th of June and running up until the 2nd of July. The 19th of June was a Thursday. This being recorded on the 3rd of July, I'm running up to yesterday, which is a Wednesday. You can read the articles yourself. If you want to go to my blog, look at the date. By clicking on the calendar, you can get to usually 15 shows and find the one you want among them. Or you can go to the show that this is recorded to, which is at a tiny URL site that you'll be able to scroll to by going down or over or however you get there. It's going to be very much up to your computer. At any rate, we are starting on the 19th of June, and this is a picture of a Spanish set of Spanish wind turbines. The article is from Clean Technica, and its title is Inside the Iberian Grid Collapse. The Iberian grid collapse happened at a time of moderate demand with large curtailment of renewable energy. It was not driven by a failure of renewable energy, however. Rather, it was the fault of multiple layers of insufficient planning and poor management of voltage and grid dynamics. The problem here was one which would have happened, I think, without the renewable energy. The renewable energy did play a part, but just because it was a part. It reminds me very much of the blackout that happened in the northeastern part of the United States, New York, New Jersey, all of New England except for Maine, and in addition to that, Ontario, and parts of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. In that collapse, it was just a breaker sensed an overload and tripped. And the result was a cascading issue that happened across basically the entire area with a few places still operating. I was in Brooklyn at the time going to Pratt Institute, and I remember distinctly that the lights went out at a particular moment, about 5:25 in the afternoon, and of course there was no renewable energy on the grid aside from hydropower, which just kept on going the way that it had been, except that it was not being used. This thing that happened in Spain and Portugal and part of France recently was of that kind of nature. It was something that could have happened at any time and did. I've been in a number of these in these things. There was one in June of 1967 that I remember distinctly because I drove from Madison, New Jersey to New York None of the traffic lights were working. Nobody was even going out on the road because it was, I guess they thought it would be dangerous. So this particular grid collapse, which happened and was initially blamed on solar and wind energy, had nothing to do with that. It was just the nature of grids. Can it be avoided? Yes, there are grid paradigms. There are paradigms for distributing electricity that would require the generation of power to be near the demand for power. And mini grids and microgrids can be established, which can separate themselves from the overall energy grid and just keep going. And in a case like that, these issues would not develop except in one location, the location where the failure happened. But because we have baseload power and so forth, running the grid requires bringing in energy from other places, and it's an old system. It was devised 100 to 150 years ago, and it's about as old as computers of that time. You remember computers of 1920? I've got some. They're called slide rules. Okay, our next issue, our next article, also from Clean Technica. This is a picture of a coal mine. I'm not sure where that coal mine is. The title is Reclaiming Coal Country, 300 gigawatts of solar gold mine from coal mine conversions. In a landmark report released this month, Global Energy Monitor reveals that converting recently closed or soon-to-be retired coal mines into solar farms could boost solar global solar capacity by nearly 300 gigawatts. That's a fair amount of electricity generating capacity, for a 15% increase in operating solar capacity. This is not particularly a surprise to me. I should point out here that what we're talking about is 300 gigawatts of solar generating capacity. Different things have different capacity factors. Solar has a low capacity factor. Nuclear has a high capacity factor. 300 gigawatts of solar might be the equivalent of, I'm going to say, 45 gigawatts of nuclear. Because the nuclear plants generally run all the time. They do shut down to have fuel added, but they are shut down for a matter of a couple of weeks every other year. And solar obviously shuts down every night. So that's just something to bear in mind. But still, 300 gigawatts of solar is a lot. I'm coming up to Friday, June 20th. And speaking of nuclear, we have a picture of a nuclear power plant in France. This is a St. Alban nuclear plant. I'm not even attempting to pronounce the name of the plant correctly. This is from Yahoo News, New Zealand. The title is Nuclear Power Plant Warning as Heat Wave Hits France. The French electricity supply could be disrupted as a nuclear power generating along the Rhone is curtailed because of high water temperatures. Nuclear operator EDF announced that high water temperatures are expected to impact production of power from the 25th of June, which was several days after this. The plant did shut down. Other plants may have, I don't know. And other nuclear plants not in France shut down because of heat. And this is a problem with nuclear generating facilities. The rivers that they are using to cool them will not cool them sufficiently if they get too hot. So if the rivers get too hot, and the air temperatures are too hot, they have to be stopped. The nuclear facility has to be stopped. So what that means is, if you have a heat wave that's too bad, your air conditioning is not going to run because it's needed to, there's not going to be power from the nuclear power plant. Okay, I'm up to Saturday, June 21st. We have a picture of wind turbines. Those turbines I kind of think might be in Germany. This is from Daily Nation. The title is Clean Energy versus Fossil Fuels in Emerging Economies at a Climate Crossroads. BRICS is at a pivotal moment. BRICS is B-R-I-C-S, all in capital letters, with fossil fuels accounting for less than 50% of its total power capacity, a first in its history. The BRICS economic bloc consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, and Iran. And this is just an indication of the ongoing conversion that the world is doing from fossil fuels primarily to renewable energy. And fossil fuels are accounting for less than 50% of the total power capacity. That means that in the majority part, which I've been saying is non-fossil fuel, rather than saying that it's renewable, because it includes nuclear. But nevertheless, fossil fuels are less than 50%. Okay, still on Saturday, we're coming to a picture of wind turbine. This says wind power. Obviously, that's not the correct caption. This is solar panels on a rooftop. The article is Clean Technica, and the title is U.S. primary energy production, consumption, and exports increased in 2024. The U.S. continued to produce more energy than it consumed in 2024. The surplus energy helped energy exports grow to a record 30.9 quadrillion British thermal units in 2024, up 4% from 2023. Now, quadrillion British thermal units is abbreviated a quad. Energy exports stayed flat at 21.7 quads in 2024. The energy imports stayed flat. I'm sorry. What was happening here was that the United States was producing more power with a flat demand, and the result of that was more of its electricity was exported in 2024. I don't know what is going to happen as a result of all the tariff things that are going on, and the fact that Mexicans and Canadians are getting upset at the United States. I just don't know how that's going to work out on the overall demand for electricity and so forth. It's difficult for me to be able to project that. I think other people who project it are possibly as right as I am, or would be if I tried to do so. I would try to make sure that a source of information is reliable before just assuming that a person knows what he's talking about. Okay, we're up to Sunday, June 22nd, and we have a picture of Donald Trump talking with somebody. This picture was taken from the White House, and it's obvious here that he's standing next to one of the White House pillars. This article is from BBC. The title is Trump Takes Huge Gamble, Putting U.S. at the Heart of the Iran-Israel Conflict. Donald Trump, the president who returned to the White House in January promising to be a peacemaker, that word is in quotes, has taken a dramatic step to insert the United States into the fraught conflict between Iran and Israel. He ordered American forces to strike 3 nuclear sites in Iran. Now, the effect of that order being carried out is, in my opinion, very unclear. I noticed in the news today that the Iranians had declared victory, and can I trust that? Absolutely not. I can't trust it. I have a feeling that this conflict is going to continue. I don't know if the United States is going to continue being involved in it. I think it's extremely dangerous. I saw that different people who are experts have different opinions about what the effects of this will be. Some of them saying that it set back Iran by years in its ability to process uranium to enrich it. And others say that it barely touched their ability to do that. And I just don't know who to believe. I don't think many people do. I would note that Tulsi Gabbard, who is the American expert on, or the Secretary of Intelligence, said in March, I believe, that the Iranians were not trying to enrich uranium to the point of making a nuclear bomb. So I don't know what that's all about. The president was asked whether what his thoughts were on the fact that his intelligence expert had said that, and his reply was, "She's wrong." I don't know where he's getting his information. I feel kind of disheartened by this whole Iranian thing. Okay, we have a picture of an Airbus airplane, an article from Clean Technica. The title of the article is "Toyota and Airbus Push Fuel Cell Dreams." Toyota Motor Europe announced a partnership with VDL Group in which 4 heavy trucks equipped with next-generation Toyota fuel cells are now operating. Also, this is a separate issue, but it's in the same article, Airbus and MTU Aero Engines announced a memorandum of understanding to push progress on hydrogen fuel cell propulsion for aircraft. This business of hydrogen as a fuel is something that I think requires a fair amount of attention and thought to understand. I have seen a number of articles, particularly at Clean Technica, which is where this is from Michael Barnard, who I have a great deal of respect for, and he makes it very clear that he thinks that anybody who pursues trying to move objects, buses, trucks, whatever, on the ground using hydrogen and fuel cells is not pursuing a rational course. Airbus, however, is using the same exact technology with the idea that it's going to be useful for driving aircraft. And the difference there is very big. The thing about hydrogen is that it's extremely light, very, very light. It's not going to be carried on airplanes, I think, I feel certain, I might be wrong, in liquid form, because in order to be in liquid form, it's got to be unbelievably cold, hundreds of degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. And keeping it that cold is something that you really can't do in an aircraft. except by allowing it to boil away, which could be done. But what they're doing here is they're using compressed hydrogen to drive the fuel cell that creates the electricity that makes the motors turn the propellers. And that might work for an airplane. It might be better to do that than to use a normal lithium-ion or lithium ferrophosphate battery. It's going to take time to figure that out. I think that it would be useful in relatively short flights, Boston to, and between Boston and New York, for example. Boston to Washington, D.C., I'm not so sure. I just don't know. But Boston to Miami, I think that's too far. We'll see how this develops. It's not going to develop very fast. I know that there are air transport companies that are using lithium-ion batteries for all of their aircraft. They've been making conversions. We've talked about it before. All of the aircraft associated with Harbor Air, which is a Canadian small airplane company. They have, I don't know how many airplanes, 20 perhaps, more than that, but they're converting all of their aircraft from gasoline or other fuel powered to being powered by battery electric. But there's a range problem with these airplanes, and I think that one of the things that we're going to have to do is decide that we're not going to pursue fast transatlantic flights in the future in the way that we have in the past. It is possible to make the equivalent of kerosene from, for example, corn ethanol, that sort of thing. But whether it's practical, we'll see. I think if we scale back our ambitions to make it easy to transport across the ocean, it might help. And I've seen solutions come up that look like they're trying to address that. And one of which might be a dirigible, for example. So you get aboard in the evening and you sleep at night and you arrive at London in the morning. Maybe it's slower than that. I'm not sure. Anyway, we have a picture. This is Tuesday, June 24th. We have a picture of a national forest, and this article is from ABC News. The Trump administration plans to rescind a rule that blocks logging on national forest lands. Okay, that's the title. The Trump administration plans to rescind a rule that blocked logging on national forest lands, Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins announced. The roadless rule, that's what the rule is called, the roadless rule, dates from the last days of Bill Clinton's presidency. It has chafed Republican lawmakers since. This doesn't mean that all of a sudden logging companies can go in and just cut down trees across national forest lands. The rule said you couldn't cut trees unless they were a certain distance from an existing road. Now, with this change to what had been in place during the time that Bill Clinton was in office, for most of the time that he was in office, with this change, it will be possible for logging companies to build their own roads. I would like to see the logging companies stay out of those lands altogether, but that's not in the cards, I'm afraid. Still Tuesday, we have a picture of a dual Doppler wind radar set. This is an article from Renews. The title is New Wind Radar Enables Ultra-Fast Measurements. The Fraunhofer Institute for Wind Energy Systems put an innovative wind radar system into operation in Germany. Fraunhofer IWES, that is Institute for Wind Energy Systems, said the so-called dual Doppler wind radar enables ultra-fast three-dimensional wind field measurements. It started delivering data in the beginning of June. What we're seeing, I'm going to put that up. I don't know if I did before or not, but it gives you an idea of what this thing looks like in the field. It's a simple looking device. It just means that the people who are studying the wind can do so using more advanced systems. I'm going to go on. We're up to Wednesday, June 25th, and we have a picture of wind plant in Xinjiang. Don't know how to pronounce Chinese, sorry. This is from South China Morning Post. China-led study proposes global green energy network to solve power crisis. The world's energy demands in 2050 could be met by an interconnected global wind-solar energy system producing 3 times the power needed at a lower cost than independent regional systems, according to a Chinese study. Okay, I'm not impressed. I think it's nice to have the ability to move power around, particularly considering that today we have abilities to move power that are far in excess of what they were in the past. If you have the proper kind of cable, you can literally transport power from any part of the world to any other part of the world at a reasonable cost, making it worthwhile to do it. However, I would point out that for a bunch of reasons, including energy security, cost, and so forth, the best way to move power, I think personally, is to have the power generated locally and used locally. Solar panels on roofs, providing for batteries that provide electricity for houses. That's a microgrid. You put a bunch of microgrids together, you can have a mini grid that's made up of microgrids. If one microgrid fails, it doesn't mean that the other ones fail. It gets cut off. This is very unlike what we just saw in talking about grid failures. The failure that took place in 1965, the failure that took place in Iberia this year. I think that the Chinese engineers who figured this out might be correct, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they are correct. So I'm going to go on for there. You can look it up if you wish. We have a picture of Anglesey. Anglesey is an island in Wales, and let me get this right. I've got the wrong. This is from Renews. The title is Wales Launches Offshore Wind Action Plan. The Welsh Government's Offshore Wind Task and Finish Group launched an ambitious blueprint. That term, ambitious blueprint, is in quotes, to capture wider economic value over 15 gigawatts capacity that could be deployed in Welsh waters. That's a lot of capacity for a country as small as Wales. The report outlines investments, planning reforms, port upgrades, and supply chain development. Yeah, why not? Why not? We're up to Thursday, June 26th, and we have a picture of Inner Mongolia. Inner Mongolia is, do we have a picture of Inner Mongolia? We do, but I don't think that it's the right place yet. There we go. We have a picture of a wind farm, and the article here is from Renews. The title is "Renewables Set Soar, Yet Emissions Hit New Record." Wind and solar generation grew 16% in 2024, this is worldwide, according to Energy Institute's influential statistical review of world energy. The combined output rose 9 times faster than total energy demand, the research found. However, fossil fuel use still increased just over 1%. Our demand is going up. Our renewables are going up, but unfortunately, they haven't caught up in terms of speed with demand. So the emissions go up. In order for us to be able to stop climate change, we're going to have to bring that net growth of emissions to zero. And it's growing. This is not, we haven't even come close to starting to do the work that we have to do to address climate change. This is a problem. So I'm going to go on to Inner Mongolia. And that is the picture of Inner Mongolia. I was surprised to see what looks like it almost looks like an old motel, which has individual cabins. This is from Xinhua. The title is "Chinese Green Energy Solution Powers Sustainability While Combating Desertification." China is levering its vast desert regions to develop large-scale solar and wind power bases that not only generate clean energy but also play a vital role in reversing desertification, offering a replicable model for global sustainable development. Okay. I don't remember when I found out that the Sahara Desert was growing to the south. It might have been 70 years ago that I found that out. I don't think it was that long, but it was a long time ago. And that is desertification. In China, in Africa, in India, other places, the expansion of deserts is being addressed by a variety of means. And one of the tools that can be used to prevent deserts from spreading is to install solar panels. And there are other means. The Great Green Wall in Africa, which is 5,000 miles, 4,800 miles long, and 5 miles wide, is being turned into a green zone, and that can have a profound effect on the desert, the size of the desert, and the rest of the world. And there has to be some money put into that, not a huge amount of money. I think it was $25 billion for that huge area. Elon Musk could probably do that himself, and if he did, he'd probably see sales of his cars go up. But nevertheless, I don't expect him to do it. But the point here, the real point here is, we've got a lot of bad news coming out about climate change. They don't really talk about the good news all that much, and there is good news. People don't talk about what can be done as much as they might, and we could change things around. We don't know how fast, because we haven't really tried. We need to try, though. We're up to Friday, June 27th. We have a picture of a turbine installation going on. This is an article from Renews. The title is "Taiwan Streamlines Offshore Wind Approvals." Taiwan's Ministry of Economic Affairs introduced a new regular review system in a bid to accelerate administrative procedures for offshore wind project approvals. The ministry convened the Energy Administration and Industrial Development Bureau to jointly perform, I hate split infinitives, the approval process, to reform the approval process jointly, if you don't mind. But nevertheless, the idea here is, this is an interesting proposition, I think. Look at the size of that crane. This is a jack-up ship that is, it has, you can see the lattice work in the nearest jack at the bow of the ship, that goes down to the ocean floor, and they're building this wind turbine, and the crane there is gigantic. I have no idea how tall that crane is, but I would guess that when it's at its highest, it's probably well over 300 feet above the water. It's interesting how they do that. And I can see they've got a wind turbine that they've just put in. They've got a mast of a wind turbine standing straight up on the deck of the ship, and they've got 3 more blades. So they've got at least 2 wind turbines are aboard that ship when it goes to sea. Okay. Our next, we're up to Saturday, June 28th, and I'm going to put that back. That's just a picture of a storm, which I found at Unsplash. This is from the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcast Corporation. I took the article from CBC because I didn't find it from an American medium. U.S. government cuts key hurricane forecast data from satellites. That's the title. I'll comment after I read this. Weather experts are warning that hurricane forecasts will be severely hampered by the upcoming cutoff of key data from the U.S. Department of Defense satellites, the latest Trump administration move with potential consequences for the quality of forecasting. It has a potential to reduce the quality of forecasting hurricanes, which has a potential for reducing the quality of the President of the United States knowing whether he's safe or not at his digs in Florida. It astonishes me how careless the thinking processes are that go into what we're doing, but they appear to be careless, and I shouldn't dwell on that, certainly, but it bothers me. Okay, we're up to Sunday, June 29th. We have a picture of Elon Musk and wearing his dark glasses. This article is from The Guardian, and the title is, "As Senate Debates, Elon Musk Calls Trump's Big Bill, quote, utterly insane and destructive," end quote. It's all in the title. Billionaire tech entrepreneur Elon Musk criticized the latest version of Trump's sprawling tax and spending bill, calling it utterly insane and destructive. Musk said, quote, "It gives handouts to industries of the past while severely damaging industries of the future." Well, Elon Musk is making money by building cars. Elon Musk is making money in a separate venture, by making solar panels. Elon Musk is, in a separate panel, he's got a company called the Boring Company. It's pretty boring, but its job is to bore. And it puts holes through the earth through which things like railroads and so forth can pass. Elon Musk for all of his shenanigans in Washington about cutting the federal budget and so forth, walking around on stage with a chainsaw, knows that his personal wealth is down. He's still the world's richest man as far as I know, but it's down by a lot, many billions of dollars, because he has been the leader of Doge, although he said he wasn't, and Donald Trump said he wasn't, and they're having what they call the most transparent government in history or something like that. I don't know what they're calling it, but it's certainly, they try to conceal everything they possibly can, and it's troubling how much is going on. But Elon Musk is calling out the bill that is called the Big Beautiful Bill, or One Big Beautiful Bill, or whatever it's called. It was passed by the House in one form, forwarded to the Senate, passed in the Senate in another form. It was sent back to the House to be passed. For all I know, it is passed now, but for all I know, it's not passed. I just don't know what the status is. The status of this bill changes very rapidly when it changes, and people don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's astonishingly badly thought out. A lot of people are losing health benefits. A lot of people are losing health insurance. A lot of people are losing jobs. The jobs last month, the jobs in the United States declined instead of growing as they were expected to. I just don't know what to say about this. I think they should go back to the drawing board and start the whole thing all over again, but they're going to have to kill this bill to do that. And I don't know that there's any part of it that's worth salvaging, but they try to work it. Okay, we're up to Monday, June 30th. We have a picture of solar PVs, photovoltaic panels, and sheep. And if you look in the column of solar panels that is just to the right of the middle of this picture, you can actually see an interesting moire pattern, set of interference patterns that make it look like there's curved things on the surface there. That's an artifact of the fact that this is an image that's rendered into dots of something that is regular. And I've seen these things all over the place. This is from Renews. The title is LandPro Achieves DCO for 500 megawatt UK solar farm. The planning consultancy LandPro has secured acceptance for a development consent order, that's what the DCO is, application on behalf of Island Green Power for a 500 megawatt solar farm in the UK. 500 megawatts is really, really big. I'll get back to that. The solar farm is designed to deliver up to 500 megawatts of electricity, enough to power about 115,000 homes. The solar farm at the old Brattleboro landfill is 1% of the size of this. This is a 500 megawatt solar farm. That is a 5 megawatt solar farm. And this thing is huge. And it's funny, I don't remember what part of the UK this was in, but I'm reading about large solar farms in the UK. This is something that would have been unimaginable not very long ago. But the solar energy has got to be so inexpensive that it makes sense to cover land with solar panels, even in a place as far north as the UK. Let me give you an illustration of how far north the UK is. Germany is almost entirely, almost 100% of Germany is farther south than almost 100% of the UK. The southernmost point in Germany is farther north than the northernmost point in Vermont. So we're talking about the UK, and that's like James Bay in Canada. That's where the UK starts in terms of its in terms of its latitude. And I remember being in college and talking about solar power, and the question was, are we ever going to have solar power in places like New England? It would make sense in Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, but in New England, really, that was a long time ago. We didn't know whether solar power would be practical in New England. These things are gigantic, and they're important enough that they're covering fields. However, if you look, you can see sheep grazing under these solar panels. This is dual use. It's what's called agrivoltaics. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, July the 1st, and we have a picture of a Ukrainian village and an article from Fast Company. And the title of the article is "The War in Ukraine Sparked a Revolution in Off-the-Grid Clean Energy." Russia has persistently targeted Ukraine's power grids and energy infrastructure, often leaving communities in the dark. In response, Ukrainian society is quickly pivoting to renewable energy solutions that can keep the power on in the face of the bombings. Well, I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, the reason why the war has happened is because Vladimir Putin at some point looked at his income, realized that 65% or 67% or something on those lines of foreign trade that was what Russia was selling to the rest of the world was in fact fossil fuels. And Europe had announced that it was going to give up fossil fuels. So what's Russia going to do when its biggest customer says, I'm not going to buy your stuff anymore? And so he invaded Ukraine to make things chaotic because he didn't have the intelligence to figure out a way to change his way of making money as quickly, anywhere near as quickly as Europe was planning to move away from it. And he invaded Ukraine. Now, having invaded Ukraine, he made a fundamental mistake, which is almost unbelievable. His people target civilian infrastructure, power utilities in this case being part of that. He's not threatened by power utilities. He is actually. He's threatened because they will replace his materials that he's got for sale. But he targets apartment buildings and hospitals and anything that his war in the Ukraine is intended to terrify people. And the result of that is that he's got an international warrant out for his arrest for war crimes. Ukrainians, by contrast, have been targeting Russia's ability to make war. And the result of that is that the Ukrainians have been able to hold their own. Okay. Here we have a picture of a sleeping young woman. I'm going to say young. I can't see her face, so I don't know for sure, but she looks kind of youngish. This is from ABC News. The title is "Significant Burden of Sleep Apnea Could Double as Temperatures Rise in Climate Change," according to a study. That's not, I did a bad rendering of that title, so I'm not going to reread it though. I said it all. Rising temperatures amplified by climate change are contributing to an increase in cases of sleep apnea, a condition in which breathing repeatedly stops during sleep, according to a study published in the journal Nature Communications. I have had sleep apnea, and I was able to, by the way, stop having sleep apnea by changing my bed, by tilting the head end of the bed up a little bit, putting my head very slightly higher than my feet. I'm told that other people can do it, but not all other people. Different people have different reasons for having sleep apnea. Nevertheless, sleep apnea is a serious problem, and the idea that the temperatures rising could make it worse, yeah, I think that's altogether possible. So I'm going to go on to another picture of Elon Musk, also from the White House, and an article from ABC News. The title here is, Trump says he'll look at deporting Elon Musk as feud reignites. President Trump told reporters his administration will, quote, have to take a look, end quote, at deporting Elon Musk after the Tesla CEO reignited the feud over Trump's spending bill. Musk, a South African national and a naturalized U.S. citizen, made several posts slamming the bill as, quote, utterly insane, end quote. Now, there's the picture. Anyway, there's a problem here. And the problem is the purpose of the law, the Department of Justice, and so forth, deporting people who come from other countries and so forth, cannot be done out of a sense of revenge. And Donald Trump makes no bones about the fact that that's what he intends to do. He's taking a look at deporting Elon Musk, possibly stripping him of his citizenship, which the government can do under certain circumstances. With a person who has got his citizenship, you can say, well, you've committed a felony and we're going to strip you of your citizenship. You can't just do that because somebody's exercising his right of free speech. And okay, the things that Elon Musk is saying are utterly insane. I believe he's got a right to say that. And I believe that President Trump does not have a right to try to stop him from saying that. Although it's not surprising to me that he would try. Okay, I'm up to my last article. And we have a picture here of the Eiffel Tower. The article is from ABC News. The title of this article is Eiffel Tower closes early as Europe swelters under a heat wave. As a heat wave scorches most of Europe, the Eiffel Tower announced that it would close early, with France expected to hit very high temperatures. Paris is expected to reach 38.3 degrees Celsius, which is 101 degrees Fahrenheit, and the Eiffel Tower closed at 4 p.m. local time. A statement on the landmark's official website said. Paris is significantly farther north than Rome, and I think Rome is at the same latitude as New York City. This heat wave in Europe is just horrible. My daughter is in Italy, or at least the last I heard, she was in Italy, and with her husband, and it was they were enjoying themselves. I forget where they were, but the temperature outside, she said, was 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And this heat wave, and we've seen these things before. I don't know what's going to happen with Europe, but climate change is making things really bad. And this is not a joke. I decided in about the year 2001, 2002, I didn't know whether climate change was happening, but I would decide when I saw the next hardiness zone maps appear to see if they had changed. The next hardiness zone maps appeared, or they were leaked. And I think they came from the Horticultural Society or something like that. And they showed very clearly the coldest temperatures, the coldest average temperatures in any part of the United States likely went up 5 degrees Fahrenheit since the previous map had been made. And the government of the United States said, no, this can't be right. You've done this for a 15-year period. It should be a 40-year period, and you did it all wrong, so withdraw the maps. That's what they told the people making the maps. The result of that was the maps didn't come out until a number of years later. It's very clear. I mean, when I was a kid, Brattleboro was probably in hardiness zone 5A. It might have been in 4B. I'm not quite sure. 4 is colder than 5. A is colder than B, but it was 5A or possibly 4B when I was a kid. Today, looking at the most recent hardiness zone information, I see that the boundary between zone 5B and 6A is just about where School Street is, running north from Elliott Street. And that means that there are parts of Brattleboro that are in hardiness zone 6. That is a clear indication that things are getting warmer, and it is all over the United States. And the fact that a senator of the United States could walk into the Senate with a snowball and say, look, that's a snowball. We're in Washington, D.C. We shouldn't have snowballs in Washington, D.C. This proves that climate change is not happening. He didn't say it in exactly that way, but that was the implication. The fact that people say we've had a record cold temperature. There are 8,000 weather stations in the United States. Any one of them can have record high or record low on any given time. They haven't been recording enough that they know the lowest temperature for every day at every station. However, one way you can tell whether we're warming or cooling is by looking at how many record highs we get and how many record lows. If the climate is not changing, the numbers should be equal. However, when you do that, you find that the record highs outnumber the record lows by 9 or 10 to 1. We are warming. We have to do something about it. Okay, I am up to my last slide. It is just to wish an altogether excellent week to everyone. Come back next time. I'll look forward to talking with you again. Bye-bye.